8 spine-chilling tales to expose the sinister and haunting horrors that keep you awake at night. The storm raged outside, the rain drumming like 1,000 fingertips against the windows. Sarah rushed through the hospital's sterile corridors, the fluorescent lights flickering ominously as she rounded the corner. Each step felt heavier, weighted by an undercurrent of dread that had crept into the very marrow of her bones. The rumors had risen to a fever pitch, patients disappearing without a trace, and shadows lurked in the corners of the parking lot, whispering tales that sent shivers crawling up her spine. As she rounded the nurse's station, her heart raced at the sight of a new nurse, her voice silky yet unsettling. "You heard about the missing patients, right?" she asked, her eyes glinting with a knowing light. Sarah felt a knot tighten in her chest. The woman's words danced in the air like smoke, curling around her thoughts. Trust was fragile, especially when protecting her children was at stake. Suddenly, a loud vibration ripped through her pocket. Sarah fished out her phone, and her hands trembled slightly as she saw the caller ID. Her eldest child. A wave of panic surged through her as the child's terrified voice flooded her ears. "Mom! The doors won't stay shut. There's something in the house." Her heart lurched, each ounce of fear pooling into a suffocating weight as she plunged into the storm. Rain slapped her like angry hands as the wind snaked its chilly fingers down her neck. The floodgates of her mind opened, racing thoughts of creaking floors and dark rooms clawing at her sanity. What awaited her in Maplewood, the neighborhood that always felt safe now twisted into a realm of shadows and unseen horrors? She pulled into her driveway, breath hitching. The house loomed like a giant beast, dark and foreboding. Silence wrapped around her, thick and suffocating. No laughter echoed from the kitchen, no sleepy murmurs came from their rooms. Panic clawed at her throat as she dashed inside, her heart a war drum pounding in her chest. "Kids," she called, her voice quaking. The home that once welcomed her with warmth now felt cold, and every creak of the floorboards echoed like a spectral taunt. As she searched the rooms, memories scrambled in her mind. Mr. Bennett, the seemingly harmless neighbor who had offered to help watch the kids. His smile turned sinister in the shadows, a mask concealing something dark, something that made her skin crawl. She felt it then, a ripple of unease settling over her as she recalled the whispers of ancient folklore spoken amongst the neighbors. Stories of spirits preying on unsuspecting families lined the neighborhood's unconscious fears, and just like that, dread blossomed inside her. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Sarah's heart raced as the silence threatened to crush her. She reached for the light, fingers trembling, and flicked the switch. Nothing. "Please, no," she whispered to the darkness, sweat trickling down her spine. Shadows flickered at the corners of her vision, taunting her with memories of late nights and shattered dreams. Then, amidst the pulsating silence, a whisper brushed against her ear, thick with malice, calling her name. The air buzzed with a sinister energy, electric and alive. Her instincts roared to life, propelling her forward into the heart of the darkness. She could sense something lurking just beyond her periphery. With each hesitant step, she had to know if it was true. Was it the stories, the neighbors, or something more tangible? What waited in the shadows behind the walls of her home? With dread swirling around her, Sarah felt the cold prickle of realization. To uncover the truth, she had to confront whatever hunted in the dark. But before she could gather her scattered thoughts, the whisper called her name again, soft yet chilling, pulling her deeper into the dark woods of her own fear. What would she find if she followed that voice? A chill swept through the room as Sarah steadied herself against the hallway wall, desperate to silence the frantic beat of her heart. The whisper came again, urging her forward, more persistent this time. It danced like smoke, curling around her as if the very darkness had taken form to beckon her toward its mysteries. "Kids!" she called again, though the sound seemed to get swallowed by the oppressive silence. Each room she passed felt like a tomb, echoing with ghosts of laughter long gone. It felt wrong, too wrong. With a breath caught in her throat, she approached the living room. It had always been filled with warmth, now it felt like a cavern, spare and heartless. The flickering flames of the fireplace should have offered comfort, but instead, they cast monstrous shadows that warped and twisted on the walls. Panic clawed at her thoughts. She grasped for any shred of control, her mind racing back to the new nurse's words. What were those stories of disappearing patients? Were any of them brought here? Was it all connected? Then, the air shifted. The whisper grew louder, more insistent, swirling around her like a cyclone. It pricked her skin, urging her toward the back of the house. Sarah forced her feet to move, through the freezing dread that wrapped around her. The hallway stretched before her, filled with the thick, cloying blackness as if it sought to embrace her. She felt the heat of her breath as it fogged in front of her. "Just a bit further," she muttered, willing herself not to turn back. But what awaited her? Would she find her children? Or something else entirely? Her hand trembled as she reached for the doorknob to the basement, a place she vowed never to revisit but once kept filled with joyful memories of family game nights. Gritting her teeth, she forced the door open, a dull creak announcing her entry. The steps led down into a darkness so profound it felt alive, a realm inhabited by unseen eyes. "Mom!" The cry pierced through the thick darkness, sharp enough to slice through her fear. Her heart jolted with hope. Could it be her youngest? "Emily!" Sarah shouted, dashing down the stairs and feeling the air grow colder with each step. The basement was dimly lit by a single, flickering bulb, casting a sickly yellow hue that barely illuminated the corners. Boxes were strewn about, her husband's old tools lay haphazardly on a bench, and haunted memories surrounded her. Then she caught sight of something moving in the corner, shadows swirling, bending unnaturally. There, huddled on the floor, was Emily. She clutched a doll that looked oddly grotesque, its eyes seemed to shimmer with a life of their own, watching her approach. Fear contorted her daughter's face, a mirror of Sarah's own. "Mom! It knew you would come!" Emily whimpered, her voice trembling like the waning light. "What do you mean? What knew?" Panic gripped Sarah as she kneeled close to Emily, scanning the shadows around them. "The doll, it keeps telling me." Emily's voice trailed off, eyes wide and glistening with tears. The air suddenly thickened, and a wave of despair rolled over Sarah, pushing her instinctively backward. The light flickered violently as a whisper slithered through the room, dense with malice. "You shouldn't have come back." Sarah's breath hitched, fear squeezing her heart. Instinct kicked in, and she turned to grab Emily in her arms. They needed to escape. But as they stepped back, the door slammed shut with a loud bang, the sound echoing like a death knell. Locked away in a basement that seemed alive with dark intent, the whispers crescendoed into a cacophony. They circled them, taunting, laughing, and the worst thought crept in: what if they weren't meant to leave? She could feel the darkness pressing in, waiting for the moment to claim them. And in the suffocating silence, she heard the whisper again, clearer than ever, sending icy fingers down her spine. "Follow me." Would Sarah follow, or was it already too late? The once familiar shadows of her home twisted into a nightmare, and she had a dread sinking feeling she was not the hunter now. She was the hunted. The air thickened around Sarah as the whispers swirled into a chaotic chant. She tightened her grip on Emily, who trembled in her embrace, eyes darting around, searching for the source of the echoing laughter that filled the basement. The flickering light cast bizarre shapes on the walls, twisting into monstrous silhouettes. It felt as if the darkness had weight, pressing down on them, wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket. "Mom, I'm scared." Emily's voice was small, breaking, but the sound set off a new spark of desperation in Sarah. She needed to stay strong. "Let us get out of here," she urged, but the whispers crowded closer, drowning her out with their malevolence. "Follow me," the disembodied voice cooed again, laced with something that made Sarah's skin crawl. The familiarity of it twisted her stomach. It was a voice she didn't recognize but somehow felt deeply ingrained in her memory, like a shadow lying dormant in her mind. "We can't," she breathed out, glancing back at the door. The wood seemed to pulse like a living thing. "We have to find a way out." A sudden crash echoed from another corner of the basement, sending both of them flinching. A box toppled over, spilling its contents, a jumble of old family photos, toys, and something glistening. Sarah's eyes narrowed in on the object glimmering in the half-light, a small, rusted key. "Look, Emmy." She pointed, hoping for some small semblance of hope. But as she reached out, the whispers intensified, shrieking, a chaotic symphony of voices. "Leave it, leave her," they clamored, the cold voice now garbling into an angry hiss. "You don't belong here." "No. I'm not leaving you," Sarah shouted, pulling Emily closer, straining against the torrent of fear that threatened to swallow them whole. But the shadows around them thickened, swirling violently, reaching out to ensnare them. She could see eyes flashing in the deep, gleaming like hungry predators. What had she walked into? Was this basement a prison for something far worse than mere darkness? "Emmy, stay close," Sarah commanded, edging toward the key, her heart pounding like a war drum. Each step felt weighted, as if the floor itself was fighting against her resolve. The moment she bent to retrieve it, the light above flickered violently, plunging them into dark chaos. A chill swept through, and the laughter rose again, louder, more malevolent. Shadows danced wildly, snapping at her ankles. Frantically, she grabbed the key and dashed for the door, Emily glued to her side. With trembling hands, Sarah twisted the knob, but it didn't budge. Panic bubbled inside her. She kicked at the heavy wooden door, desperate to free them from this dark abyss. "Please let us out," she cried, pounding against it with all her strength. But another whisper threaded through the din, almost seductive in its tone. "You don't want to leave, stay with us. We need you, Mom." Emily screamed, and Sarah turned just in time to see the doll drop from her grasp, rolling toward the center of the basement, its glassy eyes gleaming with an unsettling invitation. It lay there, waiting. Time seemed to freeze, the walls leaning closer as if to eavesdrop on their despair. The whispers shifted into a singular voice, sharp and echoing, "Join us. The door won't open for you unless you let go." "What do they want?" Sarah whispered through gritted teeth, feeling the darkness tug at the edges of her sanity. Then it hit her a terrible realization. The basement wasn't a place of refuge, it was alive, hungry, thriving on fear. And she held the key that might condemn them both. "Emmy," she said, urgency wrapped around each word, "if I tell you to run, you do it no matter what, okay?" But before Emily could reply, the whispers erupted into a cacophony, drowning her hopes. They looked around, knowing they were trapped in a struggle against something unspeakable. And as Sarah's heart raced, she could almost feel the walls tightening like a noose. The air turned bitter, the shadows coiling tighter around them. Emily clutched her mother's hand, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I love you. Mom, I love you too, my sweet girl," Sarah breathed, knowing that love might be their only weapon against the encroaching nightmare. But what was waiting just behind that door, if it ever opened? Suddenly, the ground quaked, rattling the very foundations of their home. The darkness surged and retreated like an ocean tide, revealing a glimpse of a figure standing by the door, pale and forlorn. "Help us," it whispered. They had no choice. Sarah had to decide. Battle the encroaching horror or surrender to the shadows. But could she trust what lay behind that plea? The dread sat heavily in her chest. Something was creeping closer, and there was no escape, or was there? The figure moved closer, its outline becoming clearer in the flickering light. A woman, her gaunt features washed out and drained of color, stood there trembling. Her eyes bore a haunting familiarity, an echo of long-lost memories, yet filled with despair. "Please help us," she implored, hands outstretched, fingers curling like roots toward the light. "Emmy, stay behind me," Sarah shouted, instinctively shielding her daughter while panic clawed at her throat. The shadows twisted, as if sensing their fear, sneering and closing in like an encircling pack of wolves. The woman's voice rang in her ears. "You have the key, it can free us." Confusion swirled in Sarah's mind. Free them? From what? The whispers swelled, drowning out the woman's plea. "Let her go. Let her stay." They screeched, voices intertwining into a grotesque melody that sent tremors through the floor. "Join us. We need you." "No!" Sarah cried, her heart hammering against her ribs. The key felt cold in her palm, its jagged edges biting into her skin. "You can't have her." With a sudden rush, the figure lunged forward, urgency palpable in her movements. "You don't understand. This house, it's a trap. It feeds on your fear." But as Sarah hesitated, doubt snaked into her soul. The basement pulsed with life, every shadow now radiating malevolence. The whispers grew louder, clawing at her sanity, snatching her breath. "Leave now, or become one of us." "No. I want to let you take her," Sarah shouted, fury and terror intertwining. In a wild surge, she yanked Emily closer, turning her back to the figure. Suddenly, the walls throbbed, sending an eruption of dust cascading down. The air thickened, swelling like a storm cloud ready to burst. Panic tightened like a vice around her heart. They had to get out, but every breath felt heavier, saturated with dread. "Mommy, what is happening?" Emily whimpered, eyes wide with terror. "I don't know, sweetheart. Hold on tight," Sarah answered, frantically scouring the dim room for any sign of an exit. The key felt alive in her palm, as if it had its own will. It throbbed with an energy that tantalized and repulsed. But the whispers shifted again, lowering to hushed confessions. "Fear, desperation, give in, join us, shut up," Sarah screamed, drowning the voices in her own panic. She could barely think. The door loomed before her, mocking her futile attempts to escape. Every time she reached for the knob, something cold and ancient pushed back, hindering her every movement. "Just let go," the figure begged, her voice breaking like glass, splintering through the echoes. "You don't have to do this alone. We can help each other." The air turned electric, a sense of impending doom coiling tightly around them. Shadows flared, revealing more figures, faces twisted in anguish, all reaching toward the woman. "No!" Sarah roared, her resolve igniting. "I want to be part of this." She shook the rusted key, brandishing it as a weapon against the encroaching darkness. Emily pulled at her arm, panic blooming on her face. "Mom, don't. It's too scary." Before Sarah could react, a cold hand shot out from the darkness, snagging at Emily's ankle. A scream tore itself from her throat, raw and primal. "Emily! Mommy, help!" Her daughter's terrified voice rang in her ears as the shadows began to drag her down. Desperation spiraled within Sarah, and all logic faded into the chaos around them. In that moment, the key shimmered with a strange light. It could unlock a path. But could it also lead to their doom? "Trust me, Emmy," Sarah shouted, her voice fierce against the writhing darkness. "On 3, I want you to run, okay?" 1, 2, but the legs she planted in defiance faltered as the ground shifted underfoot. "Mom!" Emily's voice trembled, pulling Sarah back from the brink of her own fury. 3. But it wasn't just them anymore. The walls echoed with the weight of the souls trapped within. The shadows howled, urging her to succumb. Now, the true horror loomed ahead. Would she grasp the key and risk losing everything, or let the darkness take them both? A final glance at the door, then at the writhing figures, left her breathless. The decision had to be made fast, but which choice would they pay for dearly? In that relentless moment, Sarah felt the key calling her deeper into the darkness, a lure she couldn't ignore, and outside the basement door, another figure approached, shadowy and silent, waiting for the moment to strike. The key pulsed in Sarah's hand, drawing her in like a moth to a flame. She felt its weight shift, as if it knew something she didn't. Emily's terrified eyes were locked onto her, pleading for salvation while her small form trembled against Sarah's side. A scream ripped through the room. It was a gut-wrenching, raw sound that echoed off the walls. Shadows danced around them, swirling faster, as if a storm was brewing. Sarah choked back fear, her mind racing with desperate thoughts. If she didn't act, she would lose everything. "Run!" Sarah shouted, tearing the key free from its icy grip around her heart. "Get to the stairs!" But as Emily moved to bolt, the cold hand that had caught her ankle released. A figure emerged from the shadows behind them, a man, his face obscured, but there was something unnervingly familiar about him. He stepped forward, a predatory smirk playing on his lips, blending into the shadowy mass that closed in around them. "Do you see how easy it is to give in?" he taunted, his voice echoing, deep and mocking. "This place is your only refuge. Embrace it." "No!" Sarah screamed, fury igniting within her. "We're not staying. You've got to fight it, Emmy." Emily showed hesitation, confusion dancing in her eyes. "Who is he, Mommy?" The man moved closer, each step deliberate. Light flickered around him, revealing features that twisted into something grotesque. "I am part of this house, just like all of you. I'm here to help you find peace." With each word, the figures around them grew more restless, their moans merging into an unbearable cacophony. Sarah's resolve faltered, the heavy atmosphere pressing against her chest. She could feel the shadows seeping closer, hunger radiating from their depths. "Listen to him, Sarah. You'll never escape." The woman, the pallid figure that had invaded their frantic moment, joined the fray. Her eyes bore into Sarah, pleading yet threatening. "We can end your suffering. Just release your fear, let us in." "No. You don't understand," Sarah shouted, clutching the key tighter. It felt right, alive, like a heartbeat against her palm. "I want to become like you." But doubt trickled into her mind. What if this was all a dream? The shadows blurred the edges of her reality. What if letting go just once could free her and Emily? The thoughts clawed at her sanity. "Mom!" Emily cried, tears streaking down her cheeks. "I don't want to be here. Please. Hold on to me. We're getting out." The figures cried out in anguish, a discordant chorus begging to be saved, wrapped in despair. Their voices mixed into a wretched serenade that spiraled into madness. Sarah closed her eyes, breathing through the knot of fear tightening in her throat. "3, Emmy. We're going to push through together." She tore toward the door, but the shadows lashed out, wrapping cool fingers around her wrist, dragging her back. A muffled cry escaped her lips as her feet struggled against the weight of the darkness. "Let her go. Let us go." The figures shrieked. Time stretched impossibly as she struggled against the pull of despair. In that moment, Sarah felt a surge of ferocity, burning hotter than the fear that flickered above the darkness. She lifted the key, aiming it at the encroaching shadows like a sword. Not today. The key blazed with light. Everything froze, a stillness so profound it felt alive. Then, with a blinding flash, the key surged through her palm, a vibrant energy exploding toward the shadows. But the moment shattered. The blinding light dimmed, and a scream echoed from the depths of the house, a sound that transcended human pain. The shadows recoiled, then surged with renewed fury. As the ground shook, Emily cried out, "Mommy!" Within an instant, the man lunged, hands outstretched toward Emily. "No!" Sarah cried. And out of the corners, another figure encroached, just as the whispers rose to a deafening roar. The basement shuddered under their cries, a resonance that threatened to crush everything in its path. Trapped in the center of it all, Sarah understood one truth. This was no longer just a battle for survival. This was a battle for the very souls of those ensnared within, and the next choice was headed straight toward disaster. What would the key unlock, if anything at all? Would it be the way out, or the one way deeper into darkness? The man lunged at Emily, but just as his fingers grazed her shoulder, the air thickened like molasses. Time warped. The scream from the house reverberated in Sarah's chest, shaking her to her core. "Emmy!" she yelled, her voice strangled by fear. In one frantic movement, she threw herself forward, grasping for her daughter, but shadows clamped down on her wrists like iron shackles. She kicked and pulled, but the darkness held tight. "Let her go!" Sarah howled, fury bubbling into a rage that chased fear away, if only for a moment. She could see Emily's frightened face, clutching the fabric of Sarah's shirt, pleading for release from whatever grip bound her. "Mama," Emily whimpered. It felt like a tease, as if the house itself was taunting her, the walls pulsating with an ominous life of their own. Help from behind the man, the shadows twisted into a shape more sinister, coiling and expanding, pulling energy from Sarah. She could feel exhaustion creeping in, draining her resolve. Her heart raced wildly as the darkness whispered awful secrets, like promises of peace if only she would submit. "Join us, Sarah," the man said softly, a grin stretching impossibly wide. "Why fight when you could be free? All you have to do is let go." "Shut up!" she screamed, shaking her head, trying to block him out. "You don't know anything." But the shadows groaned in accord, and Sarah felt biting cold seep into her bones. They skittered over her skin, a chilling embrace that promised no escape. From the dim environment, faces emerged, pinched and haggard, eyes soaked in desperation like ponds of despair. Each one spun a tale, their mouths moved in silent agony. "Mommy," Emily cried, "please. Make it stop." It broke Sarah's heart. She couldn't let her child succumb to despair. Fueled by love and desperation, she wrenched her wrist free, using every ounce of will to pull away from the grasping darkness. The key hung still in her other hand, glowing faintly as if waiting for her decision. A sudden roar echoed through the basement, cutting through the shadows. It wasn't just fear but a deep, primal rage that surged from her chest. The key became hot, pulsating like a heartbeat. "Get away from her!" she screamed. Every ounce of fear sharpened into clarity. Sarah hurled the key at the nearest shadowy figure, sending a burst of light cascading through the void. The darkness screamed in vengeance, splintering apart and howling like a wounded beast. The other figures recoiled, their faces twisting in anguish as if they were not just prisoners but part of the darkness itself. Emily's little feet was free, hope sparked through Sarah's veins. "Let us go!" she shouted, pulling her daughter toward the final barrier, the door leading up to the faint light above. But as they surged forward, the darkness roared, a tortured lament that clawed at their heels. The thick mist wrapped around Sarah, pulling her back with the strength of 1,000 hands. "We will not let you leave." The voices cried, twisted in a symphony of despair. The moment stalled. "No!" Sarah shouted, her voice trickling with fear, but there was no stopping the impending surge. She could feel the weight of shadows clawing at her mind, while the familiar features of those bound within reached out, desperate. The man's smirk twisted, flickering like a faulty bulb. "You think you can escape? You belong to us, all of you do." In that instant, a decision loomed in the air, sharp as broken glass. "Mommy?" "I'm scared," Emily whispered, clinging tight to Sarah's leg. Suddenly, the basement began to shake violently, as if the house itself were alive, trembling, and awakening. Raw power flooded the air, imploding in an explosive pressure that left Sarah gasping. The walls became alive, churning with roars and sobs. This was at the nexus of fear and salvation. "Emmy, hold tight," Sarah barked, willing her feet to move. She had to fight. This was a fight for every child, for every soul lost in the shadows. But just as she launched forward, a scream tore through her heart, shattering her resolve. From behind, figures lunged, shadows flickering like flames. "Let them through! Let them through!" They shrieked, voices intertwining, building into a choking crescendo. And then the key pulsed again, a blinding glow washing over the scene. Would it illuminate the path to freedom, or doom them to the very depths of despair? The answer loomed like a storm as everything spiraled out of control. The world collapsed into chaos. As Sarah pulled Emily closer, the blinding light from the key erupted like the dawn after a restless night, illuminating the twisted shadows, revealing them in stark relief. The man with the ghastly grin staggered back, momentarily blinded, and the shadows writhed in agony, shrieking and hissing as if unraveling from existence. "Now, Sarah! Go!" Emily shouted, her little voice cutting through the madness. Drawing on every ounce of her strength, Sarah surged forward, dragging her daughter close. They stumbled through the door, a flicker of brightness beckoning from beyond. The shadows clawed, lashing out, but each swipe met the burning light of the key. For a fleeting moment, it danced like a golden flame, pushing the darkness away. "Mommy, hurry!" Emily's small hands were like fire against Sarah's skin, pushing her onward. Then, as if the house had taken a deep breath, the door slammed shut behind them with an ear-splitting bang. The finality of it echoed in Sarah's ears like a death knell. She turned, panic tightening like a noose around her throat. Was it over? Were they safe? But as her eyes adjusted, she realized they were not in safety. They had entered another room, equally oppressive and brimming with a chilling familiarity. This space felt just like the basement, but different. The wallpaper was peeling, riddled with questionable stains. Items lay scattered as if in haste, a doll with one eye missing, dark stains on a faded carpet, lines of dust gathering in the corners as though time had come to a standstill. Is this another trap?" Emily whispered, gripping Sarah's hand tighter, her breath quickening. "I don't know," Sarah replied, her heart hammering in her chest. The shadows outside thudded against the door, like something wild trying to break through. "But we can't let them catch us again. We have to find a way out." As they moved deeper into the room, the sense of being watched prickled Sarah's skin. Whispers floated through the air like cobwebs, nudging at the edge of her sanity. She tried to listen, to decipher the cacophony of voices that spiraled around them, but the words twisted, knotting into confusion. "Mommy," Emily murmured, her voice trembling. "What if we're stuck here forever?" "Never," Sarah declared fiercely, forcing a confidence she didn't feel. In her mind, the figure loomed larger, the man's grin now morphed into a haunting specter. "We will find a way." She turned to examine the space, heart racing, searching for an exit. The walls seemed to pulse, breathing dark, oppressive energy. A heavy armoire loomed in the corner, half open like a gaping mouth. With a deep breath, Sarah moved toward it instinctively. Something gnawed at her gut. Something told her that the answer was nestled inside, or perhaps a hidden darkness beyond waiting, hungry. "Stay here, Emmy," she instructed, feeling momentarily brave. But what if no? She cut her off, turning back to the armoire. She yanked it open. The inside was shadowy, but she gasped at what she saw. Faded photographs fluttered like dead moths' faces from the past, staring back at her with hollow eyes. Each face a tortured memory, a record of despair. They were people who had suffered, who had vanished into the gloom. "Mommy," Emily whimpered, edging closer. Not now, Sarah whispered, her fingers trembling as she reached for a photo. A young girl looked back, her expression eerily similar to Emily's. As Sarah's heart clenched at the thought of losing her own daughter, she barely registered the whispers growing louder, echoing a name. Sarah. Sarah what? She shot her head up, dread twisted in her gut. But she wasn't alone. The air thickened, coiling around them. The door rattled violently, and a shadow began to creep over Emily's shoulder. Mommy! It's coming! In a split second, Sarah's heart plummeted. She dashed back to Emily just as a hand shot through the shadows behind them, grasping for her. Run! She commanded, but panic swallowed her words. They were trapped, circling in a web of dread. As they turned back to the door, Sarah realized it was already ajar, an invitation into the unknown. Could this lead them to safety, or would it trap them forever in darkness? The shadows roared, each echo a knife in Sarah's chest. With Emily's small hand in hers, they rushed through the opening as the malevolent grip closed in around them. The shadows pressed closer, and Sarah could feel the icy breath of despair washing over her. The unknown loomed ahead, a swirling vortex of potential doom. Was freedom a heartbeat away, or had they just stepped deeper into their worst nightmare? The truth hung thick in the air, coiling and twisting, waiting for them to make a choice. They stumbled into the next room, hearts pounding, and the dim light flickered, casting frantic shadows that danced on the walls. It was cold here, a bone-chilling draft that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. The air tasted metallic, like fear mixed with rust. Where are we? Emily asked, her voice quaking. I don't know, Sarah replied, scanning their surroundings. The walls were covered in peeling paint, patterns that seemed to swirl and morph, almost alive. It reminded her of the basement, but this place felt more haunting. In the corner stood a mirror, the glass fogged and cracked, the edges dark with mold. An unsettling feeling washed over Sarah as she moved closer, drawn by an unseen force. With each step, the whispers grew louder, wrapping around her mind like a vice. Look, Mommy! Emily pointed, her wide eyes glued to the reflection in the mirror. But it wasn't just their reflections staring back. Other faces distorted the surface, mouths moving silently, eyes large and pleading. Sarah felt her breath catch in her throat. Don't look. Don't, but it was too late. In an instant, the mirror pulsed, and a throaty laughter erupted from its depths. The sound clawed at Sarah's ears, twisting her insides. She turned to run, but fear rooted her to the spot. Mommy! Emily grabbed her hand, her grip tight, pulling her back to reality. Let us go! Sarah shouted, jerking away from the mirror's pull. They rushed away, but the laughter followed, resonating, echoing off the walls, mocking their escape. What was that? Emily gasped, her eyes darting around as if trying to spot the lurking monster. I don't know. Just keep moving. They dashed through the sparse furniture, shadows shifting with every hurried step. Each creak of the floorboards beneath made Sarah's heart race faster. Every flicker of light felt like an omen. A door loomed ahead, slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness beyond. This way. Sarah pulled Emily with her, hope igniting a fire in her chest. As they approached, the door swung open wide and a gust of wind swept through, chilling them to the bone. They stepped inside. The room was smaller, walls lined with shelves filled with dusty books. Each tome was as lifeless as the objects surrounding them: vintage vases, broken toys, and a rocking chair that creaked back and forth as if someone had just risen. Nothing looks safe, Mommy, Emily whispered, shivering. No, but we have to find something, Sarah replied, urgency lacing her voice. The shadows outside pressed against the walls, ominous and restless, as if they were alive and watching. Just then, Sarah spotted a glimmer of gold, a trinket box half hidden beneath a pile of papers. She approached, heart racing, but it was the whispers that stopped her in her tracks. "Sarah, find us, come back," she froze, paralyzed by fear. The voices were familiar echoes from her past. The images of faces from the mirror rushed back to her, framing her mind in terror. "Mommy, it's talking. Make it stop." Emily screamed, and Sarah's heart shattered at the raw panic in her daughter's voice. With a frantic movement, Sarah clenched her jaw and flung open the box. Inside, a key small and ornate, adorned with strange symbols, glimmered in the dim light. "What's that?" Emily asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know, but it could be our way out." At that moment, another crescendo of laughter echoed outside, shaking the walls. The shadows surged with renewed vigor, and Sarah felt the panic swell. They were closing in again. "Please, we have to hurry." Emily tugged on Sarah's shirt, her tiny face alight with fear. "Hold on," Sarah urged, gripping the key tightly, feeling a familiar warmth radiate from it. "Where do we go now?" Emily pleaded, looking around wildly. A distant sound pierced the chaos, a door creaking open behind them. But there was no door there, only the endless dark stretched before them. In her heart, a new hope ignited. "I think I know." Sarah built courage from the uncertainty. "We're going towards the light." Lifting her chin, she started of the way they had come, determined, while the shadows hissed at her heels. But behind them, deeper in the room, the key's energy pulsed like a heartbeat. What lay beyond the door? Was it freedom, or was it another trap waiting to ensnare them? As they ran, the shadows thickened, swirling with malice, and Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were being hunted. A sudden darkness swept over them, and a chilling whisper brushed against her ear. "You can't escape." Suddenly, the floor bucked beneath them, and the world tilted. Would the key lead them into salvation or doom? The ground heaved violently, sending Sarah toppling to one side, pulling Emily down with her. Panic clawed at her throat as they hit the floor. The key flew from her hand, landing just out of reach, glinting menacingly in the mad flicker of light. The shadows seized the moment, rushing towards them with the speed of a predator, ravenous and relentless. "Mommy!" Emily's voice pierced through the chaos, laced with terror. Sarah scrambled to the key, her heart pounding, each beat a burning reminder that time was racing away from them. The laughter was back, louder now, a cacophony of jeering voices echoing off the walls, drowning her in dread. "Get up! Get up!" Sarah shouted desperately, grabbing the key. It felt warm against her palm, yet the way it pulsed mimicked the frantic rhythm of her heart. She shoved it into her pocket and yanked Emily to her feet just as the shadows crept closer, clawing at the air. "Mommy, help!" Emily's grip was like a lifeline, and Sarah held on tightly as she searched their dim surroundings for an escape. The room began to twist, morphing into nightmarish forms, captured in the mirrors that lined the walls. The faces from before contorted, weeping, angry grinned from the reflections, their whispers clawing into her mind. "Find us, come back!" The voices blended into the laughter, chilling Sarah to the bone. She heard a thud behind them, the door. It had slammed shut, trapping them inside. A creeping horror clutched at her stomach. "This way!" She dashed toward a wall covered in books, the only full bookshelf left visible against the gloom. Shelves piled high with desolate tomes, their spines cracked and worn, promising dark knowledge and despair. Emily stumbled beside her, breathing heavily, eyes wide with fear. "Mommy, we can't stay here." "I know. We have to find a way out." Sarah reached for the nearest book, yanking it from the shelf. Dust billowed into the air, dancing like ghosts as it settled, yet nothing happened. She tossed it aside and grabbed another, this one with a cover that felt oddly warm. "Help us!" came a frantic cry, echoing inside the walls. It wasn't just whispers, it was a plea. A sharp thrill shot through her. "Emily, did you hear that? Make it stop." Emily trembled, tears spilling down her cheeks. "It's okay. It's okay." Sarah reassured her, her own heart racing. She flipped the pages frantically. Shelves creaked like bones beneath the weight of their fear. The laughter still echoed, seemingly mocking their efforts. "Help us." The voice grew loud, strangling the still air. "Mommy." With one final wrench, Sarah pried the spine of the book open, and something inside glowed a hidden compartment. "Look!" she gasped, revealing a worn-out map, splashed with creases and faded ink. "What is it?" Emily asked, her voice shaking as she squinted at the glowing lines. "I think it's a way out." Before she could elaborate, the shadows lunged forward, a swirling mass of darkness lunged, tendrils reaching. Sarah grabbed Emily's hand and thrust the map before her. "We have to follow this. Now." They ran, the map illuminating their path as the shadows shrieked behind them, furious at their escape. With each stride, the laughter turned into wails, creating a cacophony that felt like both sympathy and threat. But the map twisted, seemingly alive, leading them deeper into an unseen labyrinth. "Where are we going, Mommy?" Emily's voice quivered. "I don't know. Just hold on," Sarah urged, pulling Emily along. The walls closed in, claustrophobic, the shadows thickening with every step. Finally, she spotted another door ahead, its edges glowing at the threshold. Hope surged again. "There." But as they approached, the laughter morphed into a single voice, a chilling whisper that sent frigid fingers down Sarah's spine. "You cannot leave, we need you, run." Sarah yelled, moving faster, fear pouring into each stride. The shadows screamed, consuming the room behind them as they reached the door. Would it open, or would the darkness swallow them whole? With a frantic push, Sarah reached for the latch, uncertainty consuming her heart as dread pooled in her stomach. What if stepping through that door meant facing something even worse lurking on the other side? The door creaked open, releasing a blinding light that forced Sarah to squint against it. She didn't hesitate, pulling Emily along as they dashed through, hoping, praying that this moment wouldn't lead them to another trap, another menacing ambush of despair. As they tumbled through, the air shifted. The light enveloped them, soothing, warm, binding them in a tender embrace that felt like home. The harsh shadows were left behind, their screams muffled as the door swung shut firmly, sealing away the horrors they had endured. They found themselves in a sunlit room, brighter and more alive than any space they'd been in since this nightmare began. Familiar laughter echoed in the distance, that joyful sound Sarah thought she had forgotten. The walls were painted a pastel blue, adorned with cheerful drawings and photographs of happy moments, family vacations, birthdays, quiet moments of pure love. "Is it real?" Emily asked, blinking in disbelief. "I think it is," Sarah replied, her voice barely above a whisper. She could feel hope threading through the dread still lingering in her bones. They stepped into the room, and with each step, the air grew lighter. It was as if the walls understood their need for safety, surrounding them with comforting memories. "Mommy, look." Emily pointed at the window. The view was of Maplewood, their neighborhood. The streets ran bright under a radiant sun, children played freely, their laughter drifting through open windows, blending with a gentle breeze that danced with energy. "It looks like home," Sarah murmured, tears welling in her eyes. With her daughter at her side, she approached the window, their reflections shimmering just enough to see the joy reflected back. Suddenly, a glimmer caught Sarah's eye, something on the floor. She bent down to pick it up. It was the key. "Mom! The key!" Emily exclaimed, her voice echoing with a newfound excitement. "Yes. But it is different now." Sarah turned it over in her hands. Intricate symbols glimmered, shining brighter in this warm light. "It's the key to our happiness." As loving memories overflowed, she imagined reducing the shadows to nothing, vanquishing their fear and despair. "Maybe this key can help others too." "What do you mean?" Emily asked, tilting her head curiously. "Maybe we can help those lost in the darkness, those who feel trapped like we did." We could be their hope. As soon as the words left her lips, there was a knock on the door, gentle yet inviting. Sarah and Emily turned to face it, hearts pounding. The door swung wide to reveal familiar faces, neighbors and friends, lost souls who had faced their own shadows but emerged seeking light. Sarah. Emily. The chorus of their names rang like a melody filled with laughter and relief. Are you okay? One neighbor rushed in, worry etched on her features. We're here. Emily beamed, hugging Sarah tightly. But Sarah felt something different in the air. It was their strength, their unwavering spirit renewing with connection. We're more than okay. We made it through, and now we can help. Emboldened by the love surrounding her, Sarah held up the key. The golden light danced around them, giving them strength and courage. In response, the neighbors filled the room, their hearts igniting with fresh hope. Together, they could stand against the shadows. Together, they could bring others back to the light. With determination flowing through them, they moved toward the door that was now wide open, inviting them to share their strength with those still trapped in the depths of despair. Emily clasped her hand tight, a wide smile lighting up her face as the warmth filled their hearts. Let us go make a difference, Mommy. And Sarah knew in that moment that they were not just survivors but warriors. Each step they took toward the unknown was filled with hope. Together, they would unlock doors for others, guiding lost souls into the light and away from the haunting whispers of the shadows. She whispered, "This may be the end of our fear, but it's the beginning of hope." In that life-affirming space, Sarah understood love is formidable, and every ending can blossom into a new beginning. Now, if you found this story inspiring, you need to subscribe immediately. Don't miss our next exclusive tales that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us reach others who crave those heart-pounding moments. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about what just happened. Your voice matters in this community. And remember, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.